As Sheba just mentioned, the global rollout of a COVID-19 vaccine now underway. That also means criminals could be after your money, and that could result in fraud. Jerry Carnes connects the dots.
A COVID-19 vaccine is not yet available to the general public, and already there is concern about criminals taking advantage of the situation to commit fraud. Let's connect the dots. Scam artists have already tried to take advantage of people with offers of false cures and fraudulent equipment. The Food and Drug Administration is warning the public about the possibility that criminals will try to con people with offers of phony vaccines. The Department of Homeland Security has these warnings. Consult only licensed medical professionals to get a vaccine or any treatment. Make sure your doctor has been okayed to provide a vaccine once one is approved by the FDA. Don't buy a vaccine over the internet. Finally, ignore any unsolicited offers of vaccines and miracle cures.